One of your books describes the process in 3 parts. What small tasks make up the large parts?
Yes, the 3 larger parts are really pre-interview, interview, and then the post-interview process. And of the 3, the post-interview process is the most grounded in common sense. So in the book, I spend probably the least number of pages discussing that, but there are things that have to be done properly in that post-interview part of the process. Good etiquette, thank you notes, not an email, a note, how to take the phone call when you're offered the job, the things you need to do before you accept the job. But by far, the most important part of the process is the pre-interview, and I explain this to people sometimes. If you understand anything about sports, you understand there's a regular season and then there's a postseason. Well, to get to the postseason, which is the interview, you have to do well in the regular season. You have to be prepared. You have to really have a winning attitude, a winning record. So if the interview is the postseason, everybody starts at that point pretty much equal. That pre-interview process is the most important part because that's where people make the most number of mistakes. They don't prepare well, they don't do their homework, they don't do the kinds of things that set them apart. So if you've got this stack of 100 applications, I'm the employer and I have this stack of 100, my job again is to get rid of 95 of them. So how do I do that? I look at things, for instance, I open it up, is there a picture of you and your dog on the front page? And yes, this has happened. Don't put any pictures of yourself. Make sure your resume looks good. The visual part of this is just as important as the information in it. A gentleman a few months ago came to me after a workshop and he told me the same thing. He said, I'm sending out my resume, not getting an interview. I said, let me see your resume. And he gave it to me. He was probably late 40s, early 50s, very knowledgeable, experienced in his field. His resume information showed that, but it was so dense. It had line after line after line after line, just like that. It was black all the way through. And I said, okay, let me show you something. And I held up a page of another resume, and he said, oh, I see the problem. The resume was just as professional, had just as much information on it, but it did it in a way that made it easy for the interviewer to see. Dates on the left column, bold headings about where this person had been, and then small bullets about what they've done. So we covered everything with a lot of white space in between without having this very, very dense resume. I say you just need to redo it so it's easier to get through, because if I'm got that stack there of 100 and I pull this up, there isn't any way I'm going to read all that information. It's going to astound some applicants when I say this, but there are some people, particularly in the business world, who will call in folks for interview without ever having read their application or their resume or their letter. They've got a set number of questions they want to ask, and they don't know anything about the person. So the person will get a question, and in their mind they'll go, well, that's in my resume, didn't you read it? And the answer, probably not. So the person may be actually looking at the resume at the same time you're answering the question, and that's your first clue that this person probably hasn't read it before the interview. So again, what you have to do during the interview is to connect all the things that you've done, not the things you're responsible for, the things you actually did in a previous job, or the things you were prepared for in college to do, the qualifications you developed there, and fit them to what this institution needs. The institution comes in with this, we have a problem, how are you going to help us solve it? Our problem is we need a position filled, how can you best fill that position? And you have to tell them that. And I think most applicants fall short of doing that. They simply don't connect the dots for these institutions.
Again, they don't demonstrate how they're a fit for that institution.
Exactly.